Miles, what's up? Where you at?
What's up? I'm in Phoenix. Phoenix Suns
Home?
territory. I can smell the desperation.
Yeah. Well, you were just asking me about the weather here in Chicago. It's very cold somehow in late May, but I'm sure everybody loves to hear that. But yeah, look at it. It's pretty beautiful.
It's been shockingly cool around here as well.
Oh, only
Feels
in
like
like the 70s.
seriously, yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We've had clouds in the sky, which is unusual.
And there's no finals until Thursday.
No finals till Thursday.
No finals.
I've been
till
trying to
Thursday.
figure
So
out what to do with my time.
right? Well, I just keep watching like just the worst. There was a replay on like one of the ESPNs of Virginia versus Duke in like January. Man, some of those guys were unnoticeable out there on the court next to Zion.
Yeah. There's a massive difference between what Zion is capable of and his ceiling versus everybody else. I would also put RJ Barrett in that category, though. I think he's special.
I think that might be something where we actually agree on. And so I don't know if you want to start with RJ, but I think Memphis should kind of honestly take a look at him at two. I mean, they kind of gave the nod to Morant already, but like I think they decided that a little prematurely, because there were reports that they already informed Morant that he was going to go to Memphis when they got the second pick. I was looking at the odds, and Memphis was slotted to pick 8th. They only had a 6% chance at the top pick. How did they know who they were going to take second overall?
Well, I think that those top 3 picks were kind of chosen. I mean, it was either going to be Zion Williamson if he got the number 1 pick, or 2 and 3 it was RJ Barrett and Ja Morant. To me, like the top 3 picks were pretty much there.
Right. And when you have that kind of media bias, or I don't want to say bias, but like heavy media favorites, and you're a GM and you go against that, you're kind of looking at another Anthony Bennett 2.0.
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody
dangerous.
wants those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Embiid could be a Cleveland Cavalier.
Big. I have here Cleveland needs a real big man.
Okay, well, I don't want to detract us. We'll get to Cleveland.
Move.
But
yeah,
back to RJ Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
What could he do with New York while he's trying to, develop his skills? But what if they get a top free agent? What does that do to his development? Because you see what happened to Lonzo. You see what happened to, Kuzma, I think, kind of played well off of him. If he got KD, maybe he could be kind of like a mentor, a hybrid mentor, because KD knows he's 30. I mean,
I think RJ is kind of a unique player in that he can play off the ball, but I think he really needs to focus on being a playmaker if he's going to go to New York. Picking up a free agent, something like Kyrie Irving, I think may pose more of a problem for RJ Barrett than Kevin Durant would. I think Kevin Durant would really help RJ Barrett, actually, scoring.
I kind of think so, too. Because they both have that Steve Nash connection, because obviously RJ Barrett is godson to Steve Nash, and Steve Nash was a consultant for the Warriors, especially during, their first couple of title runs. Mm-hmm. He was kind of like a bandwagon helper, I guess. I don't know if you can call him that. He's probably there from the beginning. But Kevin Durant, and I've seen a video of Kevin Durant watching high school version of RJ Barrett saying he's going to be the next big thing. It was, one of those Hasa highlights, overtime videos just on YouTube. I think you're right. I think from like a mentor standpoint, is there any better guy to learn from than KD? It'd be like you're playing quarterback for the Patriots at that point, right?
Yeah, and not only on the offensive end of the floor, but also Kevin Durant is a very good defender.
And he had to learn how to do that to win as a team.
Yeah, he definitely did.
LeBron went to Miami. I'm done stealing all your points, but LeBron went to Miami and he learned how to be a champion, and so did Kevin Durant at Golden State. Mm-hmm. You see the kind of relationship that LeBron and Kyrie have or had, and he was really there to help push Kyrie into that playoff, superstar that he thinks he is.
Yeah,
So
I think
how does RJ Barrett fit next to Knox?
I think really well. To
You
Dennis
think
Smith
Knox is
Jr.
good?
I think I do. Yeah, I like Kevin Knox. I think he killed it in the summer league. I think he's going to continue to develop and get better. I think after the summer league, people had really unrealistic expectations for him. Where with Trae Young, it was kind of the opposite. It was like, oh, we got to let him develop and do all these things. And then he exceeded expectations.
True.
Trae Young did phenomenal this year. And then Kevin Knox kind of leveled off. So I think people read way too much into the summer league, and then they develop these expectations. I think Kevin Knox is kind of a victim of that. Just people developing really high expectations. But I think he's still going to develop into a great player. I think he's got awesome potential. I think he'll live up to it. And the unique thing about New York, especially if they're able to pick up Kevin Durant, is that they're going to have like this kind of, I think, what the next phase of the NBA is, and that's positionless basketball kind of. So RJ Barrett is definitely able to play the point guard position. I believe that. And I think that should be his main focus. Because having somebody that's 6'7" and able to finish at the basket like he can, and still able to have that touch around the perimeter like he has, I think that would be the most valuable thing right next to Kevin Knox and potentially Kevin Durant.
He did really play point guard after Trey Jones got hurt. He played point guard majority of the time, and especially late. Coach K put the ball in his hands and said, we're going to live and die by RJ. He was the number one recruit coming out of high school. He's the guy who's going to get passed on twice. I do think you got to have that chip on your shoulder mentality if you want to make it in the league somehow. And like we keep saying, the Kevin Durant comparison, I don't think they're the same player, but
no, not at all. Also, the big men in New York right now, they still have DeAndre Jordan. I don't know if they're actually going to keep him. I don't know what the plan is for that, but they've also got Mitchell Robinson. And that dude, I think, is pretty underrated. I don't know. It might be.
I think he's being thrown in there in those trade packages for Anthony Davis. How do you think New York fares up to against Los Angeles, or gosh, who even knows these days? Who's going to trade for him?
I don't know. I mean, I was reading all kinds of different things. I have no idea where Anthony Davis even lands because I read something on Bleacher Report that Portland is now in the mix.
I know, it's crazy, dude.
Like a trade package with CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic.
Pelicans. Wait, for CJ?
Yeah, they're talking about CJ and Yusuf Nurkic and the Portland's 25th pick, which honestly, if New Orleans agreed to that, I think that would not be a bad deal. I still say don't do it because I think Anthony Davis should stay in New Orleans. They're going to get Zion Williamson. You got to stay.
I think the timeline for David Griffin is important, and I think the timeline of when and if he's traded will tell you a lot about what he thinks of Zion specifically, because if he trades him at or before the draft, it's kind of showing that we need young picks. I need to be in control of who these young players are, and we're just going to hit the total reset, build around Zion as the focal point. But, kind of like reaching for the NFL here, kind of like in Washington where Robert Griffin III was the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. He did. They mortgaged the franchise to get him, but then they couldn't have anything to show for it. So now, actually, that kind of didn't really make any sense. But for David Griffin, if he trades him after the draft, he's saying, like you said, I think we can win now with CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic, two veterans, still have a version of a tail end of a prime left that we could, I guess, like football, mortgage Zion's low salary cap now before we have to extend him and eventually pay him the super duper extra max because he's going to make all NBA first team like his second year. Who knows? Gosh, if they get rid of the center projections, or if Alvin Gentry's crazy enough to start Zion at center full time like Ben Simmons at point guard, like you said, positionless basketball, right? Why not? I mean,
yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah,
Zion could make first team All NBA center or third team. I mean, shoot, he can hold his own against some of these guys down there.
He can definitely play center. They've got him listed at 280.
I think that's Boban's. No, Boban's got to be in the 300s.
I
Okay,
think
so
Boban is the
keeping.
heaviest, but yeah.
So I guess, do you have any last thoughts on the Pelicans and Zion? How do you think they should build around him?
I honestly think something else I read was if they are able to pick up Kyrie Irving, they can convince Anthony Davis to stay. I think if I'm New
To the
Orleans,
Pelicans?
yeah, that's the first I'd ever heard of that. So I don't know how much truth is in that. At this point, I
Hmm.
don't think there's really anything to anything. People are
Well, if we
just
kind of want to tie in free agency, I do have a thing that is because Kyrie, I don't think he's going to the Lakers. I really don't think so. But I think they've kept it vaguely open enough because I think LeBron and Kyrie they're on the same page, right? It's if Kyrie outwardly comes out like KD and says the Lakers are toxic, clearly they're toxic, KD. Why do you have to even say that? But Kyrie, I've seen him on 2K Live with a goal with like a Lakers jersey. He likes like Kyrie pictures on Instagram, and it's smart for him too. He's using his leverage as a free agent to get the best deal that he can. What if all of a sudden he's the last of the superstars to sign and he can't get a max deal from Brooklyn? He can't get a 5-year deal.
yeah.
He's got to
also
use his.
he's also a guy that likes to play that card and get people talking. Like he's the one that came out with the flat Earth theory. It's not something he actually believes. It was something he was trying to make a point of. Is like, why does it matter what I say? That was his whole point to the flat Earth thing.
Kyrie is our age.
Yeah, he's trying to figure things
I
out
am
still.
irresponsible, say things I don't mean all the time, very moody, and I don't have a quarter of the responsibility that he does.
Yeah, and the money that he's dealing with, yeah, it's insane to even think about and put it in reality.
It's exponentially, I can't even imagine. And the amount of criticism he gets is just so, it's like, really? He's the reason why they lost. It wasn't the fact that they just couldn't gel together because the rest of his teammates couldn't buy into what they were all selling, which was, hey, we need an A-plus guy to go to if we're going to get over the LeBron James hump. Because guess what? If you can't beat LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals, you're going to get swept by Golden State. And if you had Kyrie in that series, and if you had even a hobbled version of Gordon Hayward, and the offense was focused around Kyrie like it should have been, maybe things are different. But now, who knows where he goes? He could go to Clippers. I mean, I don't think he with Shea. But anyways, tying this back to the draft, we kind of hit the Pelicans. We kind of hit the Knicks a little bit. But I think the Lakers, I saw this, and I want to know what you think about it. Darius Garland was at LeBron James's junior's AAU game this weekend. There's pictures of it. There's a picture of Darius Garland with his arm around the younger James child. I'm sorry, but has the draft happened yet? Did Darius Garland fall to 4? But I also read that he stopped working out for teams. He must have gotten a promise.
That's interesting. Darius Garland at number 4, that would be a pretty tremendous rise, I think, in his draft stock.
The comps for Darius Garland are Kyrie Irving. I think LeBron James took a step back this summer.
I think the only reason that he's getting that comparison is because he only played like 6 games in college, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
I
mean,
think
same as Kyrie Irving. He's definitely got promise and he's got that potential. But people don't seem to be talking about the fact that he's still undersized, same as Trae Young. Is that really the piece that the Lakers want to? I mean, what I've been seeing is DeAndre Hunter to the Lakers. Which
is just the worst thing I can even imagine.
I don't see how he would fit.
If Rui Hachimura doesn't come off the board before the Virginia guy, I don't know what's going on. DeAndre Hunter, you just said his name. Hachimura is going to be 1,000 times better pro because, look, in this draft, there are only a couple franchise players. You could get a really good role player at 7, at 8. And Hachimura is that guy. He's going to run the floor. He's going to be a smart offensive player. He's going to cut. He's going to screen. He played for Mark Few for 3 years.
And that's the thing. Those Gonzaga guys putting
Zach
in.
Collins played with him for 5 months, and look at him now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're putting in 3 and 4 years, most of them. Zach Collins was the first freshman to ever be drafted out of Gonzaga. Most of those guys, 3-4 years. And there is a correlation in how fast those guys are able to adapt to the league based on how long they've been in college.
Guys born in early 98.
That's crazy. Holy cow.
February of 98. And he's played 3 years of college basketball, born in Japan. In order to be a successful pro or a successful person, you need to have multiple things that interest you in life. You can't just be about basketball and not death. This guy is a well-rounded guy. I assume. I have no idea. He could be, a cyberbully. I don't know. But pro comp, Antoine Jameson, athletic small forward, versatile skill set. If you don't have more than 2 things you can do, you can't be on the floor. You have to be able to do things and make plays and switch and defend and get in passing lanes and run the floor.
I agree with that. I think you have to have at least 2 offensive weapons and be able to play the defensive end of the floor. If you're going to be that kind of, I don't know, whatever Antoine Jameson would fit into these days. It's actually it's like a very difficult position to compete for now, because the guys that are coming out of college, like you said, this development toward this positionless basketball has made everything from a shooting guard to the power forward nearly the same thing. So, I mean, it's not unusual to see a power forward that can shoot the ball. It's actually kind of disappointing to see a power forward that can't shoot the ball now. We're starting to see centers that are stretching the floor, and also starting to see a lot bigger point guards like Russell Westbrook and like, I think, RJ Barrett. Good examples. Lonzo Ball is another good example. They're starting to all look like really similar players.
Right. They're all like hybrid wing points.
Yeah. So I think DeAndre Hunter fits that bill. But yeah, I think drafting him number 4.
But he doesn't have a knockdown shot, and I don't think he's a good enough ball handler to get to the hole consistently.
Yeah, I think at best he's a bench 3-and-D guy.
Would you rather take a chance on a guy like Hunter or Cam Reddish, who you didn't really see what he could do with the ball all the time, kind of like a Devin Booker at Kentucky? And now that you give him his own team, a different game in the NBA game, more space, more ability to play make.
I mean, he was playing behind the top 2 players coming out of high school with Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett. I mean, 2 of the top draft picks. That's really, really difficult to play with, especially when you're trying to play. I mean, at 6'8", he's trying to play shooting guard.
Well, and
with 2 guys that are
it's not only trying to play the position. He's, like you said, he's trying to live up to this huge hype machine that has been building over years. RJ Barrett was the number 1 player for years. Zion Williamson's been a legend since he was a junior. Mm-hmm. And before the season started, it was RJ, it was Zion, and it was Cam. It was the 3. Now we only seeing 2 of those guys being the special treatment.
Yeah, and that's for Cam Reddish. I kind of feel for him because his draft stock dropped a ton simply because RJ and Zion's rose. And I think he's not quite getting the exposure that he really deserves, which is why he's doing a lot more of these pro day camps and things. And Zion and RJ are kind of sitting at home working on their game. I mean, Cam Reddish is traveling around. I know that he did the Octagon Pro Days here in Phoenix. So he's still traveling around. He's still doing the NBA Combines. And that shows you that he's still trying to get attention and show what he's capable of. Where Zion and RJ, everybody already knows what they're going to get. I think...
You know who I think RJ Barrett is? I mean, who were you talking about?
Cam Reddish.
Cam Reddish is? Josh Jackson with a jump shot.
I can see that. And
That's
a
a different
last mock-
player.
yeah. I think Cam Reddish is really special, actually. And I've seen Atlanta going for him in the last mock draft that I looked at, and I love that.
They have 2 picks in the top 10. I think you got to pull a trick. You got to take a chance at one of them, right? You got to throw a wild card in there. You got to draft a Bull maybe or something. Maybe the international. I can't even pronounce the guy's name out of France. French Draymond Green.
The 2 picks that I've seen out of Atlanta, if we can talk about this, was Cam Reddish and then Jackson Hayes. I love those 2 picks for Atlanta because I think if we talk about Atlanta's development this summer, it's not going to be a really competitive playoff
That's
team.
interesting. That's interesting. So this is like a philosophy on team building.
So
you have the Steph Curry point guard, you have the Klay Thompson wing, and you have a center in John Collins who's something. He can be something.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you need?
Youthful talent, especially
need?
Taurean Prince. They definitely need a big man, like somebody to fill the paint. Somebody other than, I think, John Collins. Just because John Collins really wants to play that 4 position. To me, the pickup of Jackson Hayes is huge because he had a growth spurt in high school from 6 feet to 6'11". Anybody that has that kind of growth spurt goes from playing like a point guard to playing all of a sudden you're playing power forward and center positions. Those guys are going to be, he still moves around like a guard. He's going to be able to block shots because he's got the timing of a guard, and he's going to be able to rebound and probably have more of that guard mentality where he was. I mean, I don't know. Just from my perspective, when you're 6 feet tall, you're kind of complaining about the guy that's 6'10" and can't rebound. So you take that kind of mentality, and all of a sudden you're the guy that's 6'11".
You know what I like?
I
like sons of professional athletes. I like Steph Curry, son of Del Curry and Seth Curry. I like Donovan Mitchell, son of baseball player, whoever the Mitchell father senior is. Says Jackson Hayes, also the son of an NFL tight end. Dude knows what it takes, probably, I don't know. Should know what it takes to be not only a high-level athlete, but to have the certain warrior mindset you have to have in order to be an NFL player for more than a second.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, actually. I think Jackson Hayes is a perfect addition to what Atlanta needs to kind of rebuild. I don't think they need much more than that at this point.
7'4" wingspan. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, he's really long, and he can block shots. I mean, I think he's a phenomenal choice for them, especially if they can get their hands on Cam Reddish. If Cam drops as far as, what's Atlanta, 8?
8 and 10.
So I think Atlanta with Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes,
that would
and
be.
And then they kind of let that group. Yeah, I think they let that group kind of develop.
So I think we can go. Let's go in the middle. We've kind of jumped around the lottery. Let's go 5, 6, 7. Cleveland, Phoenix, Chicago. Let's play a little mini game. I'm on the clock with Cleveland. Zion went 1. Ja went 2. Let's go for shits and gigs. Darius Garland went 4 because I've seen that. So he's out. We can go Cam Reddish if we're Cleveland. We can go Colby White. We can go Nasir Little. We can go Cam Reddish. Jared Culver. I think I'm going to go with... Honestly, I think Bull is in play. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, that's honestly an interesting...
I think
like if we're on the clock, we're in trouble if we're talking about Bull and not sure. But
and number 5 at the number 5 pick.
He's definitely a player that can develop. He's got a good background, went to Mater Day, had a reasonable season at Oregon.
He had a great season at Oregon. At times, they couldn't do anything offensively. He was the only thing that can get anything going. Granted, he wouldn't go in the paint at all. Concerning. He has a foot problem, and he's 7'4". Concerning. He weighs 208 pounds. Very concerning. I mean, the last thing I've been this concerned was when I saw Joel Embiid had a back problem, he had a knee problem, and he's only played basketball for 3 years.
Yeah, if I'm that high, I'm probably not risking a number 5 pick on Bol. Jarrett Culver, I think, is an interesting pick, but the Cavs are in such a weird situation with their roster where you're
Whoever
not
you
exactly
get is
sure
going to have to share the ball with Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. No disrespect, but those are two very ball-dominant guards who probably are more concerned about their shots and their development more than the number 5 pick overall in the 2019 NBA draft.
And also, if they're able to get Kevin Love back, he's a fairly ball-dominant post player. I mean, like a stretch 4, but he definitely plays down in the post a lot.
Kevin Love is like the new NBA stretch 5. He could be – he's like – I think he's going to have a great season.
I really hope so. I hope he can stay healthy. I mean, that's the biggest problem with –
he's going to be an excellent trade asset for them.
Now taking well, I guess he's not really an Oregon guy, huh? I was going to say taking Bol, they have that Oregon connection, but I guess they don't really.
Who?
Kevin Love.
Cleveland? Oh, yeah.
With Kevin Love.
Definitely have maybe a Nike connection, like a Nike franchise, but let's
I don't
just –
know. The Cavs need more than one
Jarrett
piece.
Culver makes sense because they're going to be asked to have like a scoring wing who can make quick decisions, who can run – in transition and make threes. And I think you got to look at Culver or Reddish, one of the two.
If they're
I don't
able
think
to
you
get
could go
Cam
to see
Reddish,
Little.
If they're able to get Cam Reddish, I don't think it would be crazy to draft him number 5. I would actually feel
Hunter may be a really good fit with Cleveland. DeAndre Hunter.
I wouldn't be too disappointed at that either if he dropped to 5.
A culture guy.
Lakers,
if
the
those
Lakers
Virginia
really
guys.
take Darius Garland, that would be interesting.
Virginia guys have a great work ethic and culture. And he was with Tony Bennett in the team for 3 years. So, they passed up on Victor Oladipo with the first pick. And he was, arguably the best prospect from that draft in 2013, which was a historically bad draft, they thought, going into it. CJ McCollum, Victor Oladipo, Giannis doesn't look so bad now. You can get a lot of value if you're Cleveland at number 5.
Oh, absolutely.
And number
Just
6,
not as much as if you were number 3.
If you're number 6 in Phoenix, how hard are you praying that Kobe White doesn't get taken by Cleveland at number 5? Is he your answer?
No. Honestly, like Darius Garland is who you're hoping for. Ja Morant is the real answer. Ja Morant was what
Luka
they
Doncic
needed.
Last year is your real answer.
And this is what we can talk this is what we can talk about is sort of how the lottery draft changed and how badly that affected the Phoenix Suns. Because they were honestly realistically hoping for a 1 or a 2 seed. They really wanted the 2 seed. They didn't want to have to turn down Zion Williamson because they really don't need him. But if you get the number 1 pick, you're kind of forced. You can't not take Zion. He's got way too much upside.
And before you finish that point, you're 100% right, because not only did changing the lottery take away the chance at the number 1 pick, but it decreased the probability that you would be in the top 3 for teams loaded near the bottom of the NBA. So before you would have like an 80% chance of being in the top 3 if you were the worst team in the league. Now it's not the same. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not the same.
So before 2019, you had a 25% chance of getting the number 1 pick if you were the last place team. What's interesting is the last 4 years, since 2015, the worst team in the NBA has been the number one pick. But before that, 2004 was the last time that the worst team in the NBA actually got the number one pick.
Right, but the following picks.
So the following picks, it goes number 2 was 19%. Number 3 had a 15% chance at getting that number 1 seed. Number 4 had an 11
saying, like,
or 12%.
Who decides who gets number 2? That's the real question. Who gets number 3? Right? Because if you're tanking, you're a tanking team, or say you're the Dallas Mavericks and you've had a great run with Luka and you could make the playoffs. But if you tank, yes, you have a shot at the number 1 pick. Right. But you could also land in the top 5. You have a higher chance of landing in the top 5 or the top 7 and offsetting some of those teams who want the top pick, like Phoenix. Like, Phoenix got screwed by LA tanking. They got screwed by,
and that's
Pelicans,
a good point.
Pelicans tanking at the end of the season.
That's a really good point, because all those teams
would be like in 5 through 7, where Phoenix is. Sorry, okay, what were you saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like those teams from 9 to 14 now, they have a much higher chance. Like some of them tripled and quadrupled chances of getting a much higher pick. Even
value.
The number 1
It's not
pick.
just the number 1 pick. It's not just the percentages of the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I know you're exactly
the value of those 4-digit numbers that the lottery ping balls get. And so, Phoenix really got screwed. They got Josh Jackson is arrested. Is he arrested? Is he in custody? Is he in Phoenix anymore? Have they traded him?
I have no idea. Phoenix is kind of a mess as well. Yeah, Phoenix is another story. I can't believe that they're not as. I can't believe they were the worst team in the NBA. I honestly can't. With Devin Booker, the promise of DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson. I mean, yeah, they didn't have a point guard, but Devin Booker was doing at least a reasonable job. I mean, they got the ball up the floor. I'm really disappointed in Phoenix. And now they don't have Ja Morant, or they're not going to get Ja Morant. So the best they can hope for, I think, is Darius Garland. I think that's got to be their pick. As far as well, let's talk about this draft for a second. Do you like the new draft lottery? I'll give my opinion on it first. So I like the fact that just tanking now, like really hard tanking, like Phoenix did to get the number 1 pick, is now kind of discouraged. It's not holding nearly the value that it once did in 2018. Because obviously Phoenix finished dead last and they got the 6th pick. So now it's forcing teams to kind of be almost in that 4-5 spot, where you're not the worst team in the NBA. But like you said, maybe you're a fringe playoff team and maybe you dump out. That's where I kind of don't like it, actually, is that there could be potential 7 and 8 seeds that are starting to kind of fall out and hoping that they get, like you said, better value in the draft. I don't know that this is necessarily the answer, but I don't really hate it either.
The NBA, I think all the NBA cared about was keeping tanking off of the headlines. We cannot have tanking be at the forefront of a 12-month calendar year of news. We can't get rid of tanking. We can't. We're not going to do a socialist draft where everybody gets the 4th pick every year. So they all got together and said, look, we can tank. We can have a period where they talk about tanking. It just can't be the whole season. We can't have Phoenix Suns fans not renewing season tickets with no hope. You have to start the season with a certain degree of optimism and the fact that you could start 20-5. And if that's the case, they won't pull all of the starters for the rest of the year. Maybe you have something. Maybe you can be like the Phoenix Suns of 2013-14, where they had Isaiah Thomas and they won 45 games in a really loaded West when no one thought they would, among the emergence of Goran Dragic. And I think by doing this, it automatically makes each franchise take a look in the mirror and say, okay, are we just trying to lose games or are we trying to reset a culture and build a franchise? And you can't do what Philadelphia did and process it where all of the players know that they're assets and they should be G League players all the season, all the time. It's a mix. You can tank. Just try and make the playoffs. Try and win a little bit. Try and develop something. And that's look, Adam Silver had an issue and he fixed it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think Adam Silver, since he's been commissioner, has done a fantastic job. Even some of the things that I really didn't agree with, I've turned out to like.
We have ads on jerseys, Miles. When I look at Michael Jordan, I don't want to see McDonald's on Michael Jordan. But now there's a Wish app on LeBron, and I'm like, yeah, make some money. Let's get some G League players with the whole Starbucks thing across the whole thing.
Absolutely. I don't think you should be able to tell who a G League player plays for. It should just be a giant billboard.
Should be an arm sleeve of M&Ms and Snickers. Yeah.
And OKC has Loves.
I mean, Lillard has Hulu has live sports on it somewhere on him.
I love the fact that they're kind of embracing that. I think that's
betting.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic for the sport, to be honest.
Trying to build fantasy basketball. Okay. That was the draft. We're done with the draft segment. Do you have any last thoughts? We'll talk about it later. Finals preview, Miles. I have somewhere I want to go. Do you have something you want to say first?
No, go ahead.
So I was trying to think of a comp for Kawhi because I think what he's doing is just crazy. It's just simply crazy. With Giannis, we know what the blueprint is. We know what a young superstar in a small market, young player going through the playoffs in the Eastern Conference looks like. It's LeBron James. When he's going through the finals against San Antonio and he gets swept, we know what that looks like. Well, what Kawhi's doing is a little bit different because he has a team of veterans, like a normal championship team, but he's like a reserved superstar with a new coach, a rookie head coach. And if you look at the past champions of the last seasons, it's been the Lakers, it's been the Warriors, it's been the Celtics, and it's been the Bulls and the Spurs. I mean, that's 5 teams out of the 30 NBA franchises. You have less than 10% of teams winning titles. And occasionally you'll see a Detroit, you'll see a Houston. So you want to look at those examples and ask you, and Dallas twice, Miami maybe if you count the first time. You want to look and see what kind of, see if there are patterns that you can recognize and kind of apply to Kawhi and the Raptors. Because I do think it's Kawhi and the Raptors. I don't think it's just the Raptors. And I think the 92 Blazers are the closest thing to what we're seeing now because you have Clyde Drexler. You have a kind of like a soft-spoken superstar who everybody recognizes and respects as one of the top players in the league. Maybe he's not the best, but they swooze through the Western Conference 4-1, 4-2, 4-1. They get to the finals, and they're facing a dynasty team on the tail end of their run. The 5th championship, the 5th finals appearance. 5th championship for the Bulls, 5th finals appearance for the Warriors. The difference is...
Did you say the 92 Blazers?
Didn't they go to the finals, right?
In 92, yeah, but they were playing Detroit, right? No, that was 91. That was the beginning of the Bulls era.
Did they not play the Bulls?
I think they played Detroit one year in 91. And then they played Chicago in 93, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you're right. 93. It's a 93 when they played Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler is not Kawhi Leonard. There were stories of Clyde being not a good worker in the Dream Team. There were stories of him not being a good coach at Houston because he didn't want to work at all. Kawhi's not that guy. Kawhi's more like Michael in the sense that you have guys that really do not care about anything else but winning. That's all they care about. And they're so focused on that. There's really nothing else. And another thing that's kind of a weird parallel between the two is that they both lost their fathers, sadly, and it shaped them. I was reading a thing on Kawhi where his dad got shot in high school.
Yeah.
And he had to play in a game days later, and he only scored 17. And they were asking him how he could play through it, but he said basketball's my getaway. And I was doing some more reading when he was playing for the Compton schools in LA, and he said he's like, my 3-pointer is my weapon. And when he was coming out of San Diego State, nobody said he was a 3-point anyways. Michael loses his dad in the finals, and you can see how that affects probably to today. And you can see how Kawhi is kind of reserved. Maybe that event kind of, I don't want to psychoanalyze him from a distance. I don't know him, but from a distance, I can imagine being in his shoes and feeling a sort of familial bond to Uncle Dennis. Maybe he's like a father figure for me, and maybe I really respect his opinion. I really don't care what anybody from ESPN thinks about me going to LA. I don't care what Greg Popovich thinks. He doesn't have my best interest. He just wants to win. And Kawhi, look, what Michael did walking away from the sport was crazy. If there's any guy to walk away from the game early because he's tired of winning championships, it's going to be Kawhi.
That's a fascinating comparison, actually. So making it, you said that Clyde Drexler, they both have giant hands as well. Same with Michael Jordan. Huge hands. They were able to do that same, the pump fake with one hand. We've seen that out of Kawhi. That's an interesting.
The only thing, but I guess that's not the same with Kawhi and Michael is Kawhi doesn't shit talk throughout the game. Right?
Yeah, he's pretty quiet. He's definitely confident, though. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, how can you, if you're Kawhi, how can you mentally break down Giannis without saying a word?
Yeah, he ate him alive. And actually, I wanted to hit on that really quick, just talking about Giannis's skill, and then I'll get back to the Kawhi comparison. Giannis got exposed in that series. I mean, a 6-game sweep. That's embarrassing. They went up 2 games, and then they got swept. Why? Because Toronto figured out that Giannis actually wasn't that skilled. What he's able to do is take one dribble, and in the rules of the game, he's able to do his Euro step travel with 4 steps and then get to the rim. But Toronto collapsed their entire defense on him and realized he's not that good of a passer. So then he decided, I'm going to go in the post. And then he just tried to play bully ball with everybody down there. And we realized, actually, his footwork is good, but his touch is terrible. He actually doesn't have that big of a bag. You know what I mean? He's not able to do that much. I think that's going to be the next step for Giannis, is actually being able to have skill enough to isolate players, because he's not able to play isolation ball now.
Interesting.
So back to the Kawhi.
So
that comparison,
real quick. Can you be the best player in basketball if you can't isolate consistently in a playoff game?
No, not in my opinion. Top 3? If you can't good question.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, his effort level is off the charts. He's a really special kind of athlete.
When you talk about guys,
6'11", and his athletic ability, and he is smart. That, and he plays defense. So I think, yes, you can be a top 3 player. But I don't think he's the best in the league. I think he can be, and he eventually will be. I just don't think he is. I kind of agree with Skip Bayless, but I'm disagreeing with everything Skip Bayless says based on principle at this point.
I love Skip. I love you, Skip. Please, if you're watching me, Skip, I love you, man. I I've been watching you since I was in the 7th grade, eating my oatmeals in the morning, man. I love you. You're the best. Keep on keeping on, man.
So that
Dude,
so that
he came after CJ McCollum, and then
he
CJ
did.
McCollum came back.
He misspelled his name.
He's like, look, buddy, if you average 1.4, okay, I'm actually on Skip's side on this, not on CJ. CJ, you're better than that. Don't go all KD on us. You haven't won shit, boy.
That's true, actually.
Back to the Kawhi pair.
So that Kawhi comparison, comparing the Raptors to the 93 Blazers is interesting because they've got Fred VanVleet, who was really a G League guy, but he's tearing it up from the perimeter right now. I mean, the last 3 games of that Milwaukee series, he was shooting 83% from three-point range. They should not expect that to continue. They should expect him to be consistent, though, in shooting well into the 40s. I mean, be a consistent threat from the perimeter. That's what they need in this series. But
Fred
comparing
VanVleet is like the guy in NBA 2K where you make the career and you're the undrafted guy and you just happen to make all the teams and you just happen to make all the shots. And then you go from being the G League player to the starting point guard, offsetting the star player in real life.
Undersized at that. Yeah, definitely. At 5'11", I think is what he's listed at, legitimately. But comparing him to that Terry Porter of that era, where Terry Porter was from Wisconsin-Stevens Point, an NAI school from Wisconsin. Nobody expected him to be as good as he was. But he could fill it up from the outside too, in an era when that really was not common. And then you have the young, athletic, stretch power forward, whatever you want to call it, Pascal Siakam, and then you compare that to Clifford Robinson of that era. That's an interesting comparison. That's actually really fascinating. And that was a team, let's see. I'm trying to think of who else was on that team. I'd have to look
facing a dynasty team. It wasn't that they just got there. It was that they were facing a dynasty, a clear cut, capital D dynasty with the Warriors and the Bulls.
Yeah. Yeah,
as
that
a
is
small
actually
market team who's never made it. Well, I guess the Blazers won in '77, but
to be fair, at that era, they should have had Arvydas Sabonis. That's what they were missing.
Okay,
was a
I
big
don't
man.
go there.
Part of that Portland big man curse. They didn't have Arvydas Sabonis. So, let's talk about the matchups really quick in this series. So the matchups are going to be actually, I think, really tough for the Warriors. Everybody on CBS Sports predicted that the Warriors in 6, the Warriors in 6, Warriors in 5. Nobody really gave Toronto the benefit. But here's what I'm going to say about the people that are predicting games for CBS is that every single one of them predicted OKC in the first round over Portland. I'll rest my case at that. The matchups for Golden State are going to be tough. They're going to have to find an answer for Pascal Siakam, which is going to have to be Draymond Green. It's got to be Draymond Green. They really don't have anybody else that can go to the perimeter like he can and guard him laterally like he's able to move. Then Iguodala or maybe Klay Thompson is the answer for Kawhi Leonard. They do not have an answer for Kawhi Leonard. Let's say that. But those are the two guys. That's the matchup.
So what happens in the second quarter when you're out there with Klay, 4 G League guys versus Freddie Van Buckets, Pascal Siakam, second gear, and that bench mob?
That's the thing. I think that second unit on the Warriors is really going to struggle. And Steve Kerr has not really decided how he's playing his bench. I mean, the first round he played a 12-man roster.
Did I see a Jordan Bell sighting in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The players that we've seen in the first round, and it's either his confidence level and that he wants to get these players experience, maybe, but you're legitimately competing for an NBA championship. I don't think you can do that.
A Bill Belichick Patriots. You haven't seen this from us, but we can play this way if you want. and that's how we'll beat you, rather than this is how we play. I'm Houston. I'm the LA Rams. I'm going to play you how I play you.
And I don't think they can do that against the Raptors. I think the Raptors are the best team that they're going to play in this playoffs so far. Not the best team I think that could possibly be put up against them, but I mean, maybe the way that they're shooting the ball. They only had 6 turnovers in game 5 against the Bucks, which has been a problem for Golden State. Golden State has thrown a lot of turnovers, and they've been fairly careless, especially in the first half of games, which seems to be when Toronto is able to really pour it on teams.
I think you got to really look at the Blazers series. It'll tell you a lot about how this game is going to go. Serge Ibaka, I mean, he's just going to tear them up.
Yeah, Kevon Looney is not going to be able to contain that.
No, even if Kevon Looney gives you 20 good minutes, all right, you throw out Cousins out there with half a leg and the corpse of Andrew Bogut, and he'll eat you alive every time.
And they've got to deal with Marc Gasol at the same time, which you saw when Myers Leonard was able to stretch out to that perimeter. And I don't want to say too much about Myers Leonard, but he was a big man. We will
not have any Myers Leonard slander on this show anymore.
He caused them a lot of problems being able to shoot the 3 ball as a center. Because
like
Kevon
Serge
Looney
Ibaka will.
And Marc Gasol.
Ooh.
And they really, Golden State likes to pack it in, especially when it comes to those big men. Kevon Looney likes to sag off and play 14 feet and wait until a big man's going to come in. They're not used to having a relevant big man from the perimeter. And Marc Gasol kind of figured it out the last 4 games. Him and Fred VanVleet were the X factors that brought it all together.
Well, just stylistically, when you compare the Blazers to the Raptors, it's 2 different philosophies. You won't have a tired Damian Lillard trying to chase around Stephen Curry around screens all game while carrying everything on offense. You won't see that. You'll see Kyle Lowry say, guess what? I'm not going to score a point, but I'm going to make sure Stephen Curry has the worst night of his life, and he goes home and he thinks of me when he's brushing his teeth and when he wakes up in the morning.
And that's the interesting part about the matchups defensively for the Raptors, is that they have Kawhi Leonard, they have Danny Green, Pascal Siakam is able to match up with Kevin Durant. If we see him come back, he won't.
And switch. They could switch anything, even if Serge Ibaka is on Curry for a couple of possessions. What's the big problem? I would rather have Curry switched on to Serge than have a Klay Thompson open 3. Like, if those are my 2 options.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You kind of have to pick your poison against the Warriors because they're that good. I think Klay Thompson's going to have a rough series. That's my suspicion. There's way more people that are able to guard Klay Thompson, because when he put up his 60, he took like 4 dribbles, right?
Right.
When he scored his 37 in a quarter, 2 dribbles or something like that.
He really didn't go off against the Blazers, and he had times where it was him running the offense around him, and he was playmaking.
He had short spurts where he was the man and he was hitting shots, but he really, you're right. He never really went off and controlled a game. And I think he's going to have an even less of a chance against a Raptors team, where I think you're right. Lowry's going to be chasing Curry around. And I think the best option is honestly to be able to switch on all of them, because Siakam can step out and disrupt shots on the perimeter. The problem would be, I think, Marc Gasol and Ibaka. Those are the 2 guys you probably don't want around the perimeter. You'd rather have Pascal Siakam jumping at a shot against Steph Curry and then having Steph Curry drive into Ibaka. Something like that. Those guys have to stay out of foul trouble. And I think the main thing that would separate Toronto is putting Kevon Looney in foul trouble early. Because if you take that away from them, all of a sudden you're forcing Draymond Green to drop down and play in the post,
Mm.
or you're bringing, somebody else, a 12th man, literally, off the bench and trying to make him play against, first team all
The
defenders.
Eastern Conference champions.
Yeah,
Toronto
precisely.
Raptors.
Yeah. I think this will be an interesting series. I would not be surprised to see it go 7. And I think also people are kind of ignoring the fact that Toronto does have home court advantage. And this is a 2-3-2 series. So it's not going to be that same 2-2, 1-1-1. So they get 2 games at home, 3 in Golden State consecutively, and then 2 back in Toronto. All they have to do is win one of them, 1 out of 3 in Golden State. To me, that's way easier mentally, and it's way easier physically. These guys get 2 days in between each game. They also get more time in one place. So they're going to get an entire week in San Francisco, or Oakland. That's way easier to wake up and play a game 2, it'd be game like 4 or 5 when you've been in that city the entire time. I think that home court is going to be a huge deal in this series, especially with Drake sitting on the sideline. He's
another
affecting
challenge
people.
for the Warriors to overcome if they're going to win another championship. I think you're right. I think Toronto maybe goes up 2-0 back to Oakland, the way that the Warriors have been opening up games and relying on the third quarter to just win them the game. It's worked, but it's a different level of competition, and Kevin Durant's going to be out. He's going to travel with them, but I think that's just a gimmick for them to think that he could play game 2. He was ruled out of game 1 so fast or so ahead of time that it's alarming.
He hasn't even got back on the court yet. He has not practiced with the team yet. I don't think he'll be back for the series.
You can't tell with a guy like him. You can't tell where his Achilles ends. You can't tell where his Achilles ends and his calf begins because it's all the same thing. It's so long. It's like this. And his leg is like this. And there's just no way. He grabbed it.
He said he felt like he got kicked, which is a pretty strong symptom of something tearing.
Even a mild tear is enough.
And some people claim this. I watched it so many times looking for it. They said they saw his calf ball up at top. Meaning they said they saw something like let loose and retract up into his calf.
Like a full-on
which would indicate
retract.
A tear, yeah. Yeah. I didn't see that.
Not a mild strain.
No, I didn't see that, but the way he reacted was really strange.
Because he was right away.
Yeah, he was running, and then all of a sudden, looked back and realized, oh, that's not good. And didn't waste any kind of time I think he tried to make it look like he could walk, but he was in bad shape. I don't think we'll see we might see DeMarcus Cousins, but it'll be a joke.
Yeah, it'll be a publicity. He won't have that big of an impact, but he'll come back. I think he'll come back. He's been eyeing the finals for too long as like a goal to come back to.
I just think DeMarcus Cousins without Kevin Durant is actually a really bad idea. I really
just straight
do.
Up, not a good plan. do not pass go. Do not collect $100 million.
I think DeMarcus Cousins works with Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant is an isolation player. It's a half-court game. So all you got to do is collect Kevin Durant's misses offensively. That's the impact that he's got to have. He's also got to get rebounds on the other end. He's a liability for them, I think.
So let's get final predictions before we go.
I'm saying Raptors in 7.
7. Man, I don't know. I think the Warriors three-peat is just at times they've been too dominant for me not to pick them. It's like the Patriots thing. You can't not pick the Patriots until they lose.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it. What I would actually really love to see is the Warriors win without Kevin Durant. That would be the perfect end to his time in Golden State.
I think another underrated note in this series is going to be if Kawhi's healthy enough to finish.
That's actually a really good point because his leg was
7 games.
Yep, that's actually a really good point. I think if
7 games is like,
Golden State has to win, Toronto has to win the first 2 at home. That's non-negotiable. They have to be able to push
back to 1-1, back to Oracle for 3.
Yeah, they cannot do that. Even coming back to Toronto down 3-2, that's a bad situation. They have to be
I think
up.
I've got Warriors in 6. I don't know, Miles.
It's a tough series. And you want to give Toronto the benefit of the doubt, but they have been kind of inconsistent through the playoffs. That's been my one problem with Toronto, is that they went 7 games with Philadelphia and nearly lost that series. And Philly didn't play that well.
I want to pick Toronto. I really do.
I would love to see Toronto do it.
I know.
If Golden State does it, I hope they do it without Kevin Durant.
I
would love to see that because they are better without Kevin Durant. Regardless of what everybody says, the stats tell everything. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry shoot better when Kevin Durant's not on the floor. They've won 31 out of their last 32 games. They are a better team without Kevin Durant. I'm not saying they're more talented. I'm not saying anything about Kevin Durant's abilities. He's obviously the greatest isolation player in the league today. I say that with confidence.
Yeah, but how do you get to be the greatest isolation player without being selfish at times and self-centered? And you're taking after Kobe, you're taking after Michael, taking after all these guys who have been me, Carmelo, and
well, that's precisely it, though. He doesn't fit with Golden State. That's an unselfish team. That's why they're better without him, is because the way that they got to be Golden State, the way they got to be the Splash Brothers, is because of their movement, and they were able to get open on the perimeter, and those guys can knock down those shots. They love those rhythm shots, and Kevin Durant throws off that rhythm.
It'd be like it'd be like if Kobe joined the Spurs in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
But I mean, this is it kind of, like you said, movement, spacing, pacing, unselfish superstars. That's the Spurs. Best isolation player in the game. Kind of selfish. That's Kobe. This is 2019, Miles. This is the world we're living in. This is the NBA now.
It'll be interesting. I'm excited for the series to start. And giving Kawhi how many days off? He's had at least a week. Their last game was Friday. When did they play?
Yeah, Friday.
So that'll be
he's going to have enough time to sit down.
I mean, rehab the leg. I'm pretty sure he got like a Charlie horse, like a really bad one.
Really bad.
Although it did kind of look like he twisted something, so I'm not sure.
All right. Any last words before we sign off?
Oh, I'm good.
All right. Coming at you soon. We'll be chilling. Later, Miles.
Yeah.